There's a phenomenon that happens in the animal kingdom. Animals suffer, they get trapped, they lose mates, they experience pain so severe that their bodies begin to shut down. But there's something they don't do. They don't decide to end it. They don't choose oblivion. That is uniquely human. Whales beach themselves on shores and die. People watch and think it's suicide, but the whale isn't choosing death. Its navigation system malfunctioned. It's caught in a storm of neurological confusion. Dogs stop eating after losing their owners. They refuse water. They decline into depression so severe that their bodies eventually give out. But the dog isn't thinking, "I want to die." It's thinking nothing. Its body is just shutting down in response to grief. Parrots have been observed plucking their own feathers until they bleed, until their skin is exposed to infection, until death eventually comes. But even the parrot, intelligent, emotional, bonded to humans, is not making a decision about non-existence. It's responding to stress. Animals can suffer, they can decline. They can decline so severely that it kills them, but that's not the same as choosing death. That requires something different.
Here's what suicide actually requires. Not pain, because pain exists everywhere in the animal kingdom. Predators feel pain, prey feel pain, every animal feels pain and wants it to stop. Pain is universal, but suicide requires three things that pain alone cannot deliver. First, the understanding that death is permanent. Not just that this moment is bad, but that you could end the future, that non-existence is an escape hatch from the present. Second, the ability to imagine that escape hatch, to think in hypotheticals, to construct in your mind a scenario that doesn't exist yet. Third, the capacity to choose that scenario over the current suffering, to decide that permanent oblivion is preferable to continuing to exist. Most animals are biologically incapable of these three things happening simultaneously. A dog doesn't understand permanence. It lives in the present moment. When it stops eating after losing its owner, it's not thinking, "If I stop eating, I will cease to exist." It's just not hungry. Its body has shut down because the person who structured its world is gone. That's not a choice. That's a biological response to trauma. Humans, though, humans can do something no other animal can do. We can imagine our own non-existence. At some point in evolutionary history, we don't know exactly when, humans became aware of death in a way that no other animal has ever been aware of it. We didn't just observe death around us, we understood something that probably took millions of years for our brains to grasp. We are going to die too. We will not exist anymore. Not eventually, not someday. Inevitably, our consciousness will end. The world will continue without us in it. Our minds will simply stop. This realization, this knowledge that death is inevitable and permanent and personal, is called mortality salience, and it's catastrophically unique to humans. Think about what this means. A dog loses its owner and its world becomes confusing and pointless, but the dog doesn't know it will die. It just knows its routine is disrupted. A human loses someone and knows three things simultaneously. The person is gone. Someday I will be gone too, and in between now and then is time that might feel unbearable. For most humans, this knowledge is manageable. We have psychological defenses, optimism bias, denial about our own mortality, the ability to distract ourselves with meaning and relationships and goals. But for some humans, the knowledge becomes inescapable. The pain becomes so severe that the thought of not existing anymore stops feeling like an impossible abstraction. It starts feeling like relief.
Here's what researchers have discovered about why this happens. Psychiatrist Cleopatra Soper developed what's called the pain in brain model. The idea is simple. Pain is universal. Every organism feels pain. Pain is a survival mechanism. Feel pain, avoid the threat. But humans have a problem. We have bigger brains than survival needs require. Our brains can do things beyond the immediate present moment. We can imagine futures that terrify us. We can contemplate scenarios that haven't happened yet. We can create meaning, lose it, and feel the loss as if the meaning was physical. When an animal experiences pain, it tries to escape the pain through action. The dog stops eating because food stops triggering the system. The bird plucks feathers because it can't escape psychological distress any other way. When a human experiences certain kinds of pain, not physical pain necessarily, but psychological pain, emotional anguish, the weight of existence itself, the brain sometimes thinks of death as an escape route, not because death is good, but because continuing to exist feels bad. And the human brain, with its capacity for abstraction and hypothetical thinking, can actually choose the abstraction, can actually decide that non-existence is preferable to existence. This creates something truly strange. Suicide contradicts every evolutionary principle. Every organism is supposed to survive. Every organism is supposed to reproduce. Every organism is supposed to pass on its genes. Suicide abandons all three. It's an evolutionary paradox, a behavior that natural selection should have completely eliminated. And yet, roughly 1 million humans die by suicide every year. It's one of the leading causes of human death. We are the only species that regularly chooses oblivion while perfectly capable of surviving.
So what does this mean? It means we got the big brain, the one that can plan, that can imagine, that can construct complex futures and see beauty in them, and also see terror in them. It means we became aware of death in a way no other animal can be. And it means that with that awareness came a possibility that no other organism ever had to face, the possibility of choosing not to continue. Not all humans choose it. The vast majority don't. We have evolved defenses against it. Optimism, hope, the ability to find meaning even in suffering, religion and culture and philosophy that tell us existence is sacred. These defenses work for most of us, but they're not perfect. And for some humans, in some moments, the weight of consciousness itself becomes too heavy, and that human does something no whale ever could, no parrot ever could, no animal on Earth besides us has ever done. It decides that non-existence is better than this. That might be the most fundamentally human thing we do. Not that we have the capacity to choose death, but that we have the capacity to understand death completely enough to choose it. Every other animal just lives until it doesn't. Humans are the only ones who can end the story before it naturally finishes.